All right, I think that we're live. Let's give it half a second. Yeah, cool. We're up. Good afternoon if you're in my part of the world, whenever you are. Today, we're going to be talking about soreness and what role it actually plays in our progress and development in terms of like strength and training and all that kind of stuff. And I think that the reason that this is really, really important is because oftentimes when people start out training, they start to chase soreness because it feels good to feel like you have done something. But as you go along, we actually start to recognize that this is less productive and not potentially the thing that you've got to chase because it actually makes certain other things more difficult. So we're going to go in three steps with this and just try and cover the logical reasoning behind why or why not we should be why or why not we should be looking for soreness or chasing it or whatever it is. And then from there, kind of see out a plan as to how we probably want to approach soreness in our own training if we're trying to get results. Um, so yeah, we'll start out here. So essentially, I'm not like I like a little bit of like logical fallacies and like philosophy stuff, but I am by no means the like best smartest person with this. But essentially, when we're looking at piecing together a piece of logic for something, we need to understand every link down the chain as to how we get from one end to the other. So in this case here, the line that we are trying to follow is what soreness does how training ends up in a result, actually not even soreness is somewhere in the middle, but how training results in a adaptation. And what we do know is that when we train, we break down the body a little bit and we put it in a position where it knows that it needs to adapt to give the given stimulus that you have so that in future it can continue to perform and it can continue to deal with the things that you are giving it. It is essentially literally an adaptation to the thing that you are giving it so that you don't die, right? So evolutionarily, this is positive because if every single day your job is to roll a ball up a hill, Sisyphus style, whatever, then it's obviously something that you need to be doing to survive. So your body needs to be able to adapt to be able to do that. Yeah. If we need to be able to run faster, if the fastest people are the ones that survive, then if you're running every single day, it's going to develop in a way that is going to make you stronger. So we are an adaptive system. And when you do that, you get better. But somewhere in the middle here, sometimes we get sore. And we get sore because of the breakdown of the muscle. And the error that we run into is this post hoc error, which essentially what we're saying when we go from soreness to goal is that because A happened, B was the result. Yeah. So A in this situation is soreness, and then B could be B would then be I got stronger. And then what happens is after we see this, we assume that because we had A and then B happened, that soreness caused that. Yeah? So it's an assumption. Let me put this in here. It's an assumption that the soreness is what made me stronger. But realistically, there's 100 other factors that happen between here and here. Yeah. So if we're going through like a scientific method to figure out, okay, what actually got me stronger, then you might look at, okay, what did the person eat in between? Did they go into the sun afterwards? Did they maybe sleep for longer? You could look at, did they balance on one leg? Did they play fall out for? We could put anything in here and start to look at what was the thing that got them stronger, because in a day, we do 100 different things. We do lots of different things. Now, the way that we do that is through the scientific method. So we look at, okay, if we specifically do these things over and over and over again, what consistently leads to getting stronger? And where this becomes a much easier error to have happen is that a lot of the time soreness does come with the thing that ends up making us stronger. So if we extrapolate this out a little bit further, if B is we got stronger, and A, let's say that we check all of these things and we just decide that training is that thing that got us there. Training is here. Well, training comes with a bunch of different things. So training might come with, and again, we're going to list a bunch of things here. So training might come with a intense strength stimulus, not stem, stim, right? It might come with soreness. It might come with the drive to gym. It might come with pre-workout. It might come with feeling good about yourself. And there is a possibility that all of these lead to more strength, right? There is a possibility that every single one of these lead to that. But there's also a possibility that some of them lead to it. Increased strength stimulus. Maybe feeling good about yourself gets you stronger. Yeah. Maybe the drive to the gym gets you stronger, but not all of them, right? And we know for a fact that the drive to the gym isn't what gets you stronger, right? It doesn't make logical sense. We have proven all of the different things that come with it, and it's not the thing. Pre-workout doesn't necessarily make you stronger, right? But it might have a side effect. Pre-workout, push harder, stronger stimulus, which does result in getting us stronger. So some things are going to be first order, where this actual thing makes us stronger. That's a bad box. I'm going to get rid of it. Some things might have second order, pre-workout, which leads to pushing harder potentially, which leads to getting stronger. There's probably other side effects and downsides. And there's things that just aren't really going to have an effect, right? So we can bring that out as far as we need. So what we're actually now looking at is training to soreness and then to getting stronger, and whether or not that is a thing. And that is essentially relating to, does correlation equal causation? And the reality is, and what we know through science, essentially through that scientific method and people going into a lot of depth with it, is that soreness itself doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting stronger. And in reality, soreness actually creates some difficulties, because the sorer you are, the less often you can train. Let's say that you have a person and they're training on Monday, Tuesday, let's do the week, right? And essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to show two different types of trainers. So here, and then we can just go from there. So we can get Mr. Sore, and then we can get Mr. Fit. Let's do that. So the person who's sore, they might train on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a little bit of Thursday. They can't really do much. Then they train on Thursday night again, and then Friday and Saturday they're sore. So then they need to do a really small session on Sunday again before Monday so they can train again, right? They've cooked themselves. Whereas somebody who gets a few more often smaller sessions is overall going to be able to result in more workload, right? And when we look at what gives us benefits and gains, let's put little red ones here because we're still getting tired. When we look at what gives us more benefit and gains, it's going to be that consistency of workload over time and the intensity that we push at for each of those sessions. And being able to put in more workload over time is overall going to have a bigger net positive benefit. But the big thing here is, and I've got it written down over here, soreness can be a proxy. Yeah. So soreness is caused by that muscle breakdown, by that muscle tearing down. And if we know that if we tear it down a lot, that we get soreness, that we get this feeling of inflammation and soreness in our muscles, then that shows us, it puts a very tangible way of us saying, yes, the workout the other day was difficult and challenging in a way that is going to move me forwards. But we can't do it every single moment because of that fact that it stops us from training quite as often. And that is how it ruins gains. That is how getting too sore ruins people's gains, because they end up not being able to move. The next day they get up and they can't get off of the toilet. They can't walk down the street, and they end up being less active overall. They end up getting less training sessions overall. And it means that they can't actually train and have effective training over the week, over the month. So then how do we avoid this, and how do we actually put ourselves in a position where we can continue to develop without soreness becoming a problem? And the thing is that soreness is caused by volume. Volume is our number one cause of soreness. Yeah, it's the biggest factor. So if you reduce your volume in a given session and then repeat that session more times throughout the week, you're actually going to be able to get a bigger amount of workload without having so much volume in one session that you overcook yourself and then you can't work anymore. So it's really important to understand that if we reduce our overall volume within a session, then we're going to be able to train more often throughout a week, which is going to give us more productive sessions to push this idea of intensity, which we know actually is linked to getting stronger. So then from there, how do we get benefit without soreness? We spread out our training. We make our training sessions more palatable. And you use soreness as a tool. So the tool that you can use soreness for is giving yourself an idea of how hard you're pushing strategically. So what we might do is within your training week or your training month, we might denote certain sessions that we want certain exercises to actually push a lot of volume in and push that level of strength and output. So out of 4 weeks, you might have a couple of those sessions. You might have one of those sessions that's a very big like muscle building session and you're pushing yourself very hard, you're peaking. You might push the leg extension a couple kilos heavier that day. You might do the hamstring curl. You might push your biceps stronger, whatever it is, right? And you give yourself that feeling of, okay, where am I at? How do I pull up from this? And if next week you did 100 kilos on the leg extension and the next day you can't feel your quads, then that gives you a good filter to say, okay, that is my actual maximum. Whereas if you push yourself that little bit harder, 100 kilos, and you feel absolutely nothing, then that tells you that's within your limits and that you're actually training probably to at least a not too hard level, but that maybe you have room to push harder again. So soreness can be a really, really good indicator of when are you overcooking it, when are you overdoing it, and where can we like auto-regulate. The other thing that we can be strategic with our soreness is allow those sessions more room after. So if you know that you're going to have a Saturday, Sunday off, have your really big strength session on the Friday so that you can actually get away with that soreness a little bit more and pushing harder on that Friday, so that then your Monday session isn't affected. Whereas if you do it on the Tuesday when you train immediately after on the Wednesday, then that Wednesday session is going to take a hit and it's going to be less productive. And then the next thing when it comes to that idea of like using it as a tool is just being able to figure out those like maximums that you're working to. The really important thing to just understand though is that soreness is not the result. So you don't need to be chasing it every single session. If you think that soreness is still, after all of this, if you still think that soreness is something that you need to have in order to have a productive session, it's similar to saying that because there's smoke at a campfire that the food got cooked, right? The smoke at the campfire just tells us that there was fire there, right? It just tells us that we trained. Soreness tells us that we trained at some point. The smoke happened, it's gone. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we had food and pans and everything that we need to be able to cook. It just tells us that we trained hard. But you can get sore, and I can make somebody sore doing 1,000 burpees, doing lots and lots of reps of whatever it is, just doing a bunch of stuff that is fatiguing, hopping on the bike for an hour, 2 hours, pushing them really hard. I can create soreness easily, right? And there's times where people just want to get sore, want to feel it, and you just give them that as the tool. But it doesn't actually closely relate to that strength gain, which is where a lot of those people who do chase the soreness and that is their one training outcome, they don't actually end up getting as much benefit and getting as strong compared to the people that are just chasing good training over time. And that's how we need to try to apply it. We need to remember that we are trying to chase a stimulus, and that stimulus is the hard training itself. It's not the soreness that comes after it. Again, it's not the devil, but use it as you need. That is kind of where I wanted to go with this. I think that soreness is a pretty big topic, but this video is very much just to boil it down and make it a pretty simple thing that we can use. So if you do have any questions about this, let me know, because I'm interested to go into a little bit more depth with it in different areas. But we just need to avoid that logical fallacy of soreness equals productive training. If you've got any questions, let me know. Write them in the comments down below. But otherwise, I will see you in the next